Hello. So I'm going to be talking to you about this headline. I'm going to be very circuitous about my language because YouTube asks you when you're putting up a video, are certain words turning up in your video at the beginning of it? You know, in the first 2 minutes or whatever. So this will involve me using language they might consider a little near the knuckle, so I'm going to be finding ways around that. It's simply YouTube rules. Police are calling people who are suspected of imposing themselves upon other people without consent by their preferred pronoun, a report finds. Self-declaration of gender identity rather than biological sex has been adopted by all key criminal justice institutions, think tank says. And then it says, women are being failed by the criminal justice system because it favours transgender rights, says a new report. Women are being failed by the criminal justice system because it favours transgender rights, and those who speak against it face a McCarthyite backlash. The study by the think tank Policy Exchange found self-declaration of gender identity rather than biological sex has been adopted as a policy by all the key criminal justice institutions. Now, that's one thing, and I thought, well, you know, the justice institutions like the police and the courts, I assume, they are just following what the politicians are telling them to do. So it's not really their fault. But no, the next line just bowled me for 6. Despite the fact that this was not aligned with the law. So the politicians aren't making these laws. It's the police and the courts who are making this up as they go along. How dare they? They are there to enforce the law. They're not there to make the law. When I want to elect a policeman to make laws, I'll do that. Apart from that, I expect the policeman to serve me in my capacity as the employer of the politicians. At least that's the theory. I know a lot of people have plenty to say about that. So it said this included circumstances in which suspects may be referred to by the police and courts with their preferred pronoun, which ends up with the Alice in Wonderland situation of the victim of an assault could find their assaulter in court being referred to as she throughout the whole process. Now imagine you're a woman who has been subjected to possibly very degrading physical abuse. You have to stand up in court and describe to a whole load of complete strangers who are staring at you what this attacker did to you in minute detail, and the the defending counsel is going to be asking you all sorts of intimate details about your body that you would have trouble talking to a doctor about in an open court, and possibly getting quite aggressive with you as well in an attempt to trip up your story. And then throughout all of that 6-foot bearded bloke with false eyelashes on is being referred to as she. Imagine how that victim might feel. The police approach meant that detained female subjects could be searched by officers who were biologically male but self-declared as women. Assistant Professor Maureen O'Hara Wasn't there an actress called that? Gosh, she's lived a long time. Assistant Professor Maureen O'Hara, the study's author, said the introduction of self-declaration of gender identity has taken place without foundation in law and in the absence of democratic scrutiny or any established political consensus. So the politicians aren't standing up for this and the voters aren't demanding it. Why is this happening? The policies by which self-declaration has been introduced have been shaped solely by reference to one interest group, namely those who identify as transgender these policies have excluded consideration of the interests of other affected groups, particularly women. She said that such practices were causing harm and distress. Oh yes. And it's also telling these women that their perception of reality is wrong. I gave an example in another video about a woman who was in hospital, and there happened to be a transgender person in the same ward, a women's ward. And this transgender person got up in the middle of the night and attacked this woman in a way I can't actually use the word for. And when this woman approached the hospital and the police, they all told her she was imagining things because there were no men on the ward. It was a women's ward. Her perception of reality was being called into question by these people. Now, that's not a political thing. That was the majesty of the police and the National Health Service all combining to tell this woman she was dreaming. Then the rest of the article talks about how especially people in the Labour Party seem to be all for this sort of thing. But when I saw this, I started thinking about why. Why might this be happening? And I came up with a possibility, and I'd be interested in your views on this. Okay, so the idea I'm going for mostly is denialism. Now, if you go to Wikipedia, you'll see denialism is the psychology of human behaviour where somebody tries to deny reality as a way to avoid a psychologically uncomfortable truth. So the police are using denialism. They don't want to admit there's a psychologically uncomfortable truth that they're facing. I'll get to how that happens in a minute. Now, let's just talk about why various groups might deny reality. Flat earthers, for instance. Why would anyone deny that the world is a globe, that we're standing on it by gravity, that we're in a universe of other globes? Well, my theory is that these are people who cannot come to terms with the insignificance of our planet, indeed our solar system, or even our galaxy. If you look at our lives, which seem so magnified to us, and in the universe, an entire life shorter than that. And it's very difficult to come to terms with something like that. And some people just don't come to terms with it. They come up with the flat earth, which puts human beings at the centre of everything. And there's a big plan that we're all part of. And we're not part of a meaningless swirl of infinitesimal specks of existence. I'm not saying that's how I feel about it, by the way. I'm just saying that's what looking at the universe in that way is quite difficult, actually. All right, so there are denials of genocide, so people in the West denying that so many Jews were killed by civilized Western people. There are people in Turkey who deny what happened to the Armenians. There are people, well, I'm not sure, has Japan ever actually formally recognized what it did to the Chinese during the Second World War? For a long time, I know they were completely denying it. And then you get communists who deny the sins and crimes of the various communist regimes that they support. That's because everybody wants to feel like, we all want to feel like we're good people. So if we're a member of a certain group that has done a horrible thing, we may be inclined to deny it happened because we don't want to feel that we're bad by association. So that's one reason why those sorts of denialism happens. And let's just carry on with the police. Now, if you are a law officer on the coalface, you see some awful things. You see suicides, you see wasted lives, you see petty, stupid crimes, you see people destroying themselves over nonsense, you see victims and tragedies almost every day of your working life. But you will also see certain things that you can't really deny. If you look at statistics, and I did this in my last video, young black men are the ones most likely to be doing street crime. Albanians are the most likely to be running brothels. I'm talking about Britain, by the way. Pakistani, grooming gangs are the most likely to be run by people of Pakistani ethnic origin. Romanians are the ones who are going to be running the begging industries, at least in the metropolitan areas. So there are certain people who are statistically more likely to be involved, if they are involved in crime, in a specific sort of crime. And the police know this. They will come across this during their working day. Now, Therefore, when a policeman sees a young black man who's just been brought in for some crime or other, the immediate thing will be, well, was he mugging an old lady? Well, that's not a very nice thing to think. Obviously, it's accusing a whole group of people with one particular type of crime. So within the heart of that police officer, he's going to think, well, I shouldn't be thinking like this. That's racist. I shouldn't be a racist. Being racist is very bad. It's the worst sin you can commit in this society. So I mustn't think like that. But that thought did pop up into my mind. Am I a racist? Well, how do I prove I'm not prejudiced? Well, I'm going to be really good with transgenders, because even though I can see that man is a man, he's wearing a skirt, he's wearing lipstick and false eyelashes, so I will call him a woman. And that shows how I can conquer even the truth that is in front of me. I think that's probably what's going on. Anyway, tell me what you think. Comments below. Right, I am Graniopteryx. I am to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I will always let you know when I've uploaded a video on Twitter, Gab and Parler, where I am at Graniopteryx. Especially if you're on YouTube, I recommend you subscribe to one of those, because I believe YouTube is sometimes not very good about informing subscribers of videos, not just of me, all across the board. Okay, right, please like this video, share it, subscribe again if you find your subscriptions dropped, and help support the channel if you can. And till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbow with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.